In Chapter 3, we're going to start learning about ecology. So the first thing we want to know is, what is ecology? The technical definition of ecology is that it is the study of interactions among organisms, between organisms, and their physical environment. So we will be discussing plants, animals, fungus, and also the non-living factors of the environment in which they live. We'll need to discuss the biosphere. So what is the biosphere? Bio means life, sphere means round. We're talking about the living portions of our Earth. This is going to include the land, the water, and the atmosphere, anything where life exists. The biosphere extends from about 8 kilometers above the Earth's surface to as far as 11 kilometers below the surface of the ocean. The definition of ecology, again, it is the study of interactions among and between organisms and their physical environment. The interactions that happen within the biosphere produce this web of interdependence between the organisms and the environments in which they live. The organisms could not survive without specific environments, and the organisms themselves can sometimes change the environments as well. Organisms do need to respond to their environment. As I said before, they can change their environment. What this creates is an ever-changing biosphere. It does not remain constant. Within our ecosystem, there are different levels of organization. We're going to start with the smallest one, and that is the individual organism. An example of this would be a cow. The next level up is a population. This is a group of individuals that belong to the same species and live in the same area. An example of this would be a herd of cattle. The next level up would be the community. This is the different populations that live together in a defined area. An example of this would be the cattle, the horseflies, and the algae that probably live in their pond. One more level up is the ecosystem. This is all the organisms that live in a place together with their physical environment. So no longer are we talking about only the living items, we're also including the non-living, like the soil and water that may be in the cattle pasture. Another level of organization is the biome. This is actually a group of ecosystems that share similar climates and typical organisms. Examples of biomes include the deciduous forest and the tundra. The final level is the biosphere. This includes our entire planet with all of its organisms and all of its physical environments. Learning about ecosystems means that we have to learn about the factors that affect the organisms within them. The living or biological influences on organisms are called biotic factors. The physical components or the non-living factors are called abiotic. So to go into more detail, a biotic factor is any living part of an environment with which an organism might interact. This could be other animals, plants, decomposers like mushrooms, and even bacteria. For example, biotic factors relating to a bullfrog might include the algae it eats as a tadpole, the herons that eat the bullfrogs, and other species that it competes with for food or space. Abiotic factors, on the other hand, are the non-living parts of the environment. There are lots of different examples like sunlight, temperature, rainfall, humidity, wind or water currents, soil type, any non-living factor that would affect an organism. For example, down below with the bullfrog, the abiotic factors are things like water availability, temperature, and humidity. The differences can sometimes be a little unclear. Abiotic factors can be influenced by the activities of organisms and vice versa. For example, pond muck contains non-living particles, and it contains mold and decomposing plant material that serve as food. So it's sort of a little both abiotic and biotic. In another example, we have the trees and shrubs that would affect the amount of sunlight on the shoreline. So the sunlight is no longer just an abiotic factor because there are biotic reasons for why it doesn't reach the rest of the pond. When scientists conduct an ecological study, sometimes it's very difficult to actually go out and experiment on organisms or environments. So sometimes scientists will use different methods in order to guide their inquiry and to help figure out what's going on. Observation is generally the first step in asking questions. The questions from the first step aid the scientist in determining what sorts of experiments to design and what sort of models they could possibly use. Remember that the purpose of an experiment is to test a hypothesis. A lot of the hypotheses that ecologists have are difficult to test. It's hard to go actually change an environment or even get a big enough group of organisms together to test. So an ecologist may set up an artificial environment, either in a laboratory or a greenhouse. They can sometimes carefully alter the conditions in the parts of a natural ecosystem, but they never want to leave too big of a footprint behind. The other difficulty is that many ecological events occur over such a long period of time and over such large distances that they're really difficult to study directly. So again, ecologists will make models that help them understand the phenomena, just like these ecosystems in a jar.